Hi, Philip. Thank you so much for being here today. I got the honor of meeting you at Hack Your Health in Tampa, Florida, my very first time there, and I got to see something that was familiar, which is Carnivore Bar. So thank you so much for doing that. And I would love for you to tell us who you are, what you do, and what brought you to the carnivore space.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm Phillip Meece. I'm the creator of the Carnivore Bar, which is basically a modern interpretation of pemmican. Pemmican is a shelf-stable meat product, first made by Native Americans probably thousands of years ago with stone tools. It's a lot of work, but it's not super complicated. It is just meat. And that's what I was looking for as a carnivore. I had dysbiosis from my time serving in Afghanistan, preservative-laden foods, antibiotics, burn pits, who knows what got thrown at me. And I came back kind of sick. And so trying to figure out what was going wrong, carnivore diet was a huge step in the right direction for me, just to kind of clear the brain fog, anxiety, like lose some weight and regain my health and vitality. And so the immediate concern was, okay, well, fatty red meat is what caused this wonderful like coming back into myself, wonderful recovery. I better not go anywhere without that. And so that was my immediate thought. I was like, okay. And then I was thinking about how I got sick and like the inputs of that, the antibiotics, the preservatives, the food-like product. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe if there's a way to take like what got me sick and like thinking ahead about like how I could make a food that I could just take with me on the weekends. So I looked up pemmican and saw like had no other hermectants or different chemicals. It wasn't oversalted. It wasn't have any preservatives, natural or otherwise, and it was really fatty too. It was also like the keto macros. Uh, Early carnivore days, 2019, 2018, it was recommending 80% of calories from fat. And so it's like, okay, this is perfect. It's actually 50% by weight, not volume, fried meat and rendered tallow. And that roughly translates to about 82% of your calories from fat, because calories from fat are so much more energy dense calories from protein. I'm like, okay, great. Well, I wonder if there's anyone else who'd benefit from having this, because I have the anxiety of going into the gas station or eating out with friends. And I'm like, what can I eat? What can I safely eat that isn't cooked on a stovetop with seed oils? And so I launched a Kickstarter. It was a huge success. And we've been supported and going back and forth with the carnivore community ever since.
Oh my gosh. When you started trying pemmican and then you realized, maybe some other people might like this, had you already started a company before, or was this your first startup? Like, what was going on?
No, zero experience, zero experience. And we've kind of bumbled through it. I underpriced the bar. I priced what I thought I would like to pay for it, not what it costs. And so it's been a steep learning curve. But because I timed it right, I timed it with like the surge of interest after Jordan Peterson, Michaela's dad, went on Joe Rogan podcast and talked about Michaela's story. And a lot of us heard this story and we're like, whoa, like she has really, really complicated illness that was very mysterious, and it alleviated a lot of things for her. And so a lot of us who were sick heard this story and we're like, maybe I ought to try this. I owe it to myself, before I call it quits. Like I need to try this before I like run up my card on like all this junk and supplements. It's like, let's try this. Maybe plants are trying to kill me. Like maybe if I eat more meat, everything will be okay. And for a lot of us, there's still some troubleshooting, but it's a good first start. It's a good first place to land. It's like, okay, so heart healthy grains are not for me. Okay, good. And then from there, like it just kind of is a progression of trying a thing, learning it, both in business, just like we do the health hacking, like people try to troubleshoot electrolytes, they troubleshoot macros, they troubleshoot sleep and circadian rhythm and light and all this stuff. And it's like, okay, how do we get back to our natural baseline? And like for the company, it's like, okay, what do we want? We want meat. It's like, how do we want it? We want it shelf stable and convenient, but without any additives, preservatives, or contaminants. It's like, okay, what should it charge? Well, it should cost as much as it takes us to make it. It's like, okay, well then something breaks. Well, okay, well it should cover that. And it's like, and so you just keep learning and learning and growing. And eventually, hopefully, if you don't go bankrupt, then you end up with a successful company.
Well, I'm so glad you didn't quit, but I'm so curious about that because I know starting a business myself, it is a lot of your own hard work and rolling up your sleeves and really just trying to figure out your market and trying to figure out how to create such an incredible solution that everybody wants it. I love that you came out with this right after Joe Rogan interviewed Jordan Peterson, which is an incredible story. And so I have histamine intolerance, and I started out in 2010 where I was diagnosed with gluten, dairy, soy, corn, and peanut allergy. And so I just avoided it like the plague, but I didn't know you could work on that and help your body heal it. So I just avoided it. And people were like, oh my gosh, what do you eat? And I'm like, whole foods, the things God made. And they were like,
Yep.
that sounds hard. And I'm like, oh, just don't go in the inner aisles where all the boxes are. So anyway, in 2022, I went to Orlando to a convention. And while I was there, it seemed as though I was gluten cross contaminated. And so I swole up, in excruciating pain, had to deal with it. Usually that lasts 3 days. So I was there Friday, Saturday, Sunday, flew home. It didn't go away. And so 7 months later, a friend of mine who was plant based at the time, vegan, but he was plant based. So now he is carnivore. It's hilarious. He's carnivore now, but he introduced me to Michaela Peterson, and that's what started my journey. And I actually I didn't interview, but I went on YouTube. It's felt like interviews. I went on YouTube and I went down the rabbit hole and I studied all the doctors in carnivore, all the experts, all the women in the space who had been doing it for a long time because it
Mhm.
seems scary to me to just eat meat and fat and salt. And so when I started, I tried to eat pork chops and ground beef. Not a good idea. Histamine intolerance. I had a cold symptom for 3 weeks straight. And so as I moved on, I realized it's just red meat and it's really just burger patties now, except for I can eat Carnivore Bar. So it's amazing. I love that. But how did you figure out the recipe? And it's not dry. It's like just so delicious. So I'm curious how you figured out how to keep it together, how to make it tastes moist to me, and also make
Yeah.
it so macronutrient dense because it is very filling and it's just a bar. It's amazing.
It's all about the fat. I mean, if you want to do carnivore successfully, you got to have high fat. And so you want to make pemmican successfully, you have to have high fat. It's not a protein bar, it is a fat bar. Pemmican is translates, to travel grease. And that's the way you should think about it. Ancestrally, like the fatted animal is the one you want. Like if you're trying to hunt, you do not want skin and bones animal. That's not good eating. It's going to taste bad and it's going to be energy poor. So we live in a world of energy abundance. And so we're kind of broken in our mindset of like what matters. The way that we kind of cure this is like we need an ancestral understanding of what is survival and what leads to survival. So we can kind of like, adjust and reattune to our genes, to our God-given nature. Like this plan has been set up for millennia and like we are messing with it at our great peril. And so it's designed to be nearly perfect. There's very, very little carbohydrate out in the forest, unless you're in certain jungles. And even those jungles, like it's hard to get fruit and then not also die of disease. Any place that there's a lot of fruit, there's also a lot of disease burden. And so it's kind of like, and there are people who are adapted to that and they have whole beautiful ways of living that are perfectly suited for that environment. But you're talking about like my ancestry is a northern climate. It's like anyone who's adapted with light skin has a trouble synthesizing vitamin D. We're mutants from the original plan to try to absorb vitamin D so we don't perish during long winters. And so we have adapted to break down lactose into adulthood. We have adapted for animal proteins. We have survived because of our ability to prioritize and find fat. When you look at those nutrients and you look at that history, it's like we were designed for this certain kind of landscape of nutrition and energy. And like the current makeup is not similar at all. And so a lot of the shifting has been from animal sources of fat to plant sources of fat, from animal sources of amino acids and protein to plant sources of amino acids and protein. And they're not equivalent. And the problem with that is that, when you put them into your own biomechanical machinery, they just don't function very well. And so when you're shifting your macros and you're shifting your sources of those building blocks of who we are, you're kind of undermining the very foundation of human health inadvertently.
Oh my gosh, so true. So, okay, my ideal clients that I work with are dealing with unexplained health issues. But women, for years and years and years, have been told they need to eat less and move more. They need to, exercise, do tons of cardio, and they need to eat less fat and higher protein, and that carbs are necessary and that they are good for your health. So, I would love for you to talk about how protein is necessary, but not high protein, and why fat is important. Now, there are a lot of women that are eating low, lean, cuts of meat, low fat, because they want their body to use the stored fat they have. But how does that work? Because I know that higher fat actually helps the body to be trained to burn fat, I believe. So, what is your take on that?
Well, the the chemistry is really, really complex. Organic chemistry is already complex, and you're talking the human body, human metabolism. It gets so esoteric that people tend to start drifting towards everyone is unique. And it's like, yes, everyone is unique. Everyone has their own journey. You epigenetically are what your parents did and what your grandparents did. You are the full sum total of your life experiences. But at the same time, there are trends. And the trends are you do better if you eat whole food. And a lot of the reason for that is that, everything's already in the right forms. If you take something like simple, like magnesium, like should be in the environment, is often stripped from the soil, should be in your food, should be in bones, should be in all kinds of different places, necessary for energy production. There are like 7 different forms of it that we can easily measure, but there are more forms than that. And so like every little thing isn't really what it says it is. You can't just have magnesium. There is no such thing. And there isn't protein. There is no such thing as just protein. Protein is typically nitrogen. And so then you're looking at amino acids and like they're all nitrogen based. It's like, okay, but which amino acids in what forms? Because everything has different shapes and the different shapes have different functions. And so there are things that your body can make and there are things your body can't make. So nutritionally, we classify those as essential or non-essential. Essential, there are lots of things that are essential that we don't classify as essential because your body can make it. If you can make it, then it's like, okay, well, it's not essential to add in. But like when you can't make, these essential amino acids, like when you have to intake these amino acids, that's really important for human health. And if you find them in the perfect ratio in animal protein and animal fats. And so your specific question is about women. They're told to do lean meat. They're not getting the fat energy. So they're not getting the fats, which are the precursor for their hormones. And this is a really big problem for women because men are on a 24-hour cycle hormone. And it's just like, it's pretty easy peasy. Like it just keeps going and keeps going. It's every day. Has a circadian balance to it. But like there's almost I don't want to get too into the weeds, but there's almost like a lunar cycle to this. And there's lots of artistic interpretations of this that are beyond the scope of my knowledge. But long story short, per month, menstruation, there's a variance in that. And the reason that there's a variance is that there's this cascade of hormones that transpires 1 week after another, after another, after another to induce ovulation and then to prepare for potential pregnancy. And then there's endometrial lining shedding. And then that's what we observe as a period so this 28 to 30, so on, there's several days variance there. Cycle is triggered by these hormones, one after another. And there are, people know testosterone and estrogen, but this one makes you a boy. This one makes you a girl. It's like, yeah, but women also have testosterone and men also have estrogen. And there's these pregnenolone, there's these mother hormones, and then they're all kind of backed by cholesterol molecules. So they're all like they're all interrelated and your body will convert this into testosterone or convert it into estrogen. And there's many more. There's many more steps. This is just a very, very big Spark Notes version of something that is incredibly complicated and that we didn't really understand very much in the last 100 years. All of this has come to light. We're like, wow, and this is why a lot of women are excluded from scientific study. because they look at all these hormones and they look at all this like complexity metabolically, and they're like, okay, we can't study women, but that means a lot of drugs and a lot of medicine isn't women focused. So a lot of the diet advice falls in the same category where they're not really thinking about women's health and women's needs being different than men's. And as you know, hormones and fat, it's kind of where this terrible advice that's not meant for women really like rubber hits the road, and there are consequences to women's hormonal health.
It's so frustrating because most advice that's giving, and I'm going to throw this one out there, long fasting, it's really easy for men to do that and have great results. But women I see have consequences because as they're in midlife and their body's transitioning, it can be a little harder on the body. And they think going like 30 or 40 days without food will not have consequence when they actually start eating again and they weighed themselves and they're like, oh my gosh, I lost all this inflammation, I lost all this water weight, I lost all this weight. And then as soon as they eat again, their body's like, hello. And then they put on weight and they're like, what is happening? And I'm like, well, it's kind of interesting.
The biggest loser is one of the most fascinating cultural experiences. I think that it's a good textbook window into how hard it is to get this right, because here are these people, they're maximally incentivized to lose a bunch of weight. They have all the support they need, and they do. They lose fantastic amounts of weight, hundreds and hundreds of pounds. You go and you look at where they are 10 years later, a lot of them are fatter than they were. And the thing is that they have lost weight, but they have not changed their metabolism. They have not changed their metabolic set rate. So they burn all of these calories, and then your body says, whoa, things are really stressful, and it reduces your metabolic rate. So the second law of thermodynamics is always true, which is the same to say is it's always useless, because it's describing more calories out or more, you gained weight. Yeah, we know you gained weight. There's more people in the room than out of the room. What does it mean, and why are more people being called into the room? Why are more calories being retained than burned? Why can some people never gain weight and some people can never lose it? It's like metabolically, I think the key is as far as what we've found with carnivore is like food is metabolic information. It's not just fuel that you just like inject into an engine that burns with fire. It is metabolic information, and that you are communicating to your hormones. You're communicating to your body abundance or famine or scarcity, stress, or having what you need, satiation. So all these different chemical signals that we've recently found out we can manipulate, like with GLP-1, with Ozempic, was like, okay, well, we can manipulate these signals, and then all of a sudden you don't feel hunger anymore. And that's very successful. It's like, okay, but what does that naturally? Do we need to manipulate this and race to the end and punch the finish line? Or can we holistically kind of shape our lives in a way to support our natural mechanisms so we feel full by eating real food and sleeping at nighttime? It's like, how can we move and live and breathe in a better, more holistic way? I think that's really the question, is like, what would be ideal, not what shortcuts can we take?
Oh gosh, and look at the people that do the GLP-1s, like Sharon Osbourne, Kelly Osbourne. There's so many people that have like damaged their bodies in such a way that they can't change the way they look. And I'm concerned more about them losing muscle versus losing fat because they're not fueling their bodies properly and they're hardly eating. I mean, there are people that are still eating junk food and a very small amount of it. So they're really not even eating. And then they're taking, something that makes them have no appetite. So it's very interesting. And it seems a little scary that it's become the norm. I know it will pass, like everything else. But what is your concern for people who are losing weight? When you said the biggest loser, it's not about losing weight per se. It's about losing fat and doing what the body was meant to do, which is to burn fat for fuel. And people are just caring about the number on the scale. So I recently threw away, I have a reel up on my Instagram. I threw away my bathroom scale and my Hume body pod. I threw them both in the dumpster. And the reason I did that is because I had an epiphany when I was working with a client a couple of weeks ago, and she actually got to see it. She didn't know I did that, but she was like, I think I'm going to put the scale up. I'm not going to weigh for a while. And I looked at her and said, I think I'm going to do the same thing. In the same day, I just had this feeling that The scale gives you a number. It does not give you a health status. So
Right.
you don't actually know if that number is making you healthier or not. So I was like, what does that 3-digit number actually mean versus just trusting my body, giving it the right fuel and waiting? I interviewed Kelly Hogan recently and she said something that blew my mind. I just could not even believe this, but she
She's a
said,
smart lady.
she is so smart. But listen to this. So this is the smartest part that I've learned from her. So she said when her doctor told her, here's the sheet, only eat the stuff on the front, the stuff on the back, don't ever eat that again. So I said, well, did you start it that day? Did you wait a week? What did you do? And she said, no, whatever carbs I had that morning, that was the last carbs I had. And then she said she called her dad and she was like, are potatoes carbs? And he was like, mm-hmm. And she was like, darn. And then she said, so she goes, okay, what I did was I started that day. It wasn't perfect. She was still drinking diet soda and eating sugar-free jello until, Charles Washington told her, yeah, you don't, no, don't do that. So she said, I lost 80 pounds the first year. And her dad said to her, Kelly, we're worried. Can you please stop? And she was like, why? And he was like, you've lost, you're losing too much weight. And she was like, look, I'm 50 pounds overweight. And on every chart there is, I'm overweight. And she was like, it's fine. So she kept going and her body did not lose a pound for 2 years. And I said to her, how did you keep going? And she said, well, I lost the illnesses that I had, the boils that,
Mhm.
I lost all these things and 80 pounds. She just didn't even, I don't know that she trusted the process more than she knew her doctor told her what to do. And she was willing to do it, even though it was crazy sounding. And so over that 2 years, she lost her loose skin, just disappeared. That's crazy to me because nobody sticks around for that. Once the 80 pounds happens, they go, ah, that one's done. Let me find the next diet. Because she stuck with it, her body like recomposed. She said calibrated. And it really just basically ate up all of her loose skin. And then who knows what else her body healed in that 2 years. Then after the 2 years, she lost the 50 pounds.
Yep.
So we have to listen to the body and let it heal itself and trust that.
It's really important to listen to the OGs. Kelly is one of the most vocal and active people from the original group who've been doing this for more than a decade. So
16.
anything that Kelly says, like weight heavily over anyone who is doing this new. Like I would count even myself. I've done this for 7 years, but it's like I'm a yipper snapper compared to the Charles Washington group. And the reason is that they have this deep knowledge of troubleshooting that we just do not have. Of like several of those people are in this zero carb group that really, really focus on zero carb. They are really, really dedicated to it, and they've seen what happens when people cheat. So right now we're in this animal-based, even sugar diet kind of experimental phase where people are trying new things. And we as a business will cater to those things. We just
Mhm.
will. But my promise is that I will always offer a zero carb version of whatever I'm doing. So we are coming out with a everyday bar that is going to be zero carb, and we're going to have some that have other stuff in it. But
Mhm.
like the goal there is going to be affordability. So the carnivore bar is basically the perfect food, except grass-fed, grass-finished, regenerative, all-American source, all-American made. We do all of it in-house by hand.
I don't
It's
know how
not
you
affordable.
that's a lot of carnivore bars.
It's not super affordable, but in emergencies, it's still a life-saving tool. It's still really great. So what we're hoping to do with the everyday bar is kind of make a more conventional bar that will be grain finished. And what's interesting is if you have mast cell or if you have histamine sensitivity, is that grain finish actually has lower histamine. And this is very important for people with histamine sensitivity to understand is that in order to compete with grain finished, like the softness and the tenderness of the meat, grass finished, all grass finished means it never had grain its whole life long, that they age that longer to compensate for the toughness of the meat. And that aging process, it's not terrible. And you say you're still able to eat carnivore bars, which is great,
Mhm.
even the OG version. But just so you know, it is aged a little longer. So you're getting a little bit of histamine. And if people are very, very sensitive, like they have to boil their own food and they can't eat anything, the people who are radioactively sensitive to histamine, they could benefit a lot from eating more commodity level beef. Like Eat the Meat You Can Afford is something that's really big in the zero carb community, something that I believe in, it's something that I advocate for, despite also being passionate about regenerative agriculture. I think that we save the planet, we save meat eaters, we invest in the future by doing regenerative agriculture. At the same time, people are really sick. And it seems kind of dystopian for people to, you know, be able to be well because of affluence. It's like that seems kind of ick,
Ick.
pay to survive is kind of the ultimate PvP server as far as dystopian capitalism goes. And so I think Eat the Meat You Can Afford is really important. Eat real meat, all meat with nothing else added. Don't eat bugs. I think that's really important to hold the line there. But I do think there are more affordable ways to do it. And that's something that we're going to be coming out with later this year if people are interested.
That's awesome. I'm interested. So also, quick note, I actually can't eat conventional meat because
Really?
I have a response to it. Yeah, it's crazy. My legs will swell up. I can't eat chicken, pork, or deer or turkey, where I will break out from my knees down and my legs will swell up. My calves will swell up huge. It's
What
very
do you think
weird.
is causing it?
I'm not really sure.
Is it certain cuts? Because like mincemeat or ground beef is handled very differently than like a whole cut, like a sirloin or like a
Mm,
whole steak or a rump roast.
yeah, I'm not I eat ribeye. I had a ribeye 2 nights ago. Legs swole up in 30 minutes. So I was like I was so satiated. I ate like a fatty cut of ribeye, added fat to it. It was just like amazing, and I could not believe how I swell up so quick. So it's very interesting.
Okay. Well, I mean, if your body is telling you this data, it's like, shoot, what do you eat now? What's safe for you?
So I eat, they're called Simple Truth. Natural burger patties, but I went from 80/20 burger patties to 85/15. They're grass fed, grass finished, and they allow me to have a little bit more fat. So I'm able to add butter or tallow to that. And that seems to go well. So now I'm still swelling even with those. So I think it is mast cell activation syndrome, histamine intolerance, and my body not feeling safe, like a nervous system issue. So that's what I'm working on now. I'm trying to go upstream instead of just trying to stay here focused on the food. I'm like, what can we do to calm the nervous system and calm down? So that's where I'm at the moment.
The Simple Truth looks like they are beef raised with vegetarian fed diet. It doesn't say 100% grass finished.
Okay. I
So
eat
that's
the
interesting.
natural ones, which are they are grain fed and they didn't seem to bother me. They were safe.
Right. So there's, it depends on like where you have the ribeye. Grill prep is a big one. Seed oils on grills. A lot of
Mm,
people will not say if they're doing like soy oil on a grill. Healing Humanity, Homestead How just did
hmm
a great Texas Roadhouse breakdown where they're actually cooking their steaks in margarine and soybean oil and then putting like sugar based seasoning on.
I don't eat out because of this reason.
I
So
know,
we got a
right?
Kruger brand conventional ribeye and I cooked it in my tasty air fryer. And
Perfect.
see what I'm saying? So I don't really know, and I'm very careful when I did eat out. So I'll eat at Wendy's, and those people are amazing. They're so diligent. I'll tell them what I have going on. They'll go get the manager. The manager comes, and they go over and tell them, "Oh, we need to clean this part of the grill." They wash their hands, change their gloves, get a new spatula.
Oh, that's
So I can
great.
actually, yeah, I can actually eat at Wendy's, and it doesn't matter which one I go to. They will do that, all of them. But
Yeah.
I can't go to restaurants because even if you show them Benazati's little I'm allergic to seed oils card. So I took butter or ghee with me, and the only thing I didn't take was the steak. And I should have taken a pan too, because it's like if you want to eat out, you got to control the environment. Now, I will be
Just
having I'm
Just have
having a meeting
logs,
with a
start a fire.
local. It's crazy. Just stay at home, right? But it's kind of like the atmosphere. So I'm actually supposed to have a meeting with a local steakhouse, and the chef is supposed to meet with me to create carnivore dishes that are clean. And I'm going to go
There you
over,
go.
I'm having a meeting to go over, and then I'm hoping to maybe have a small meetup here in the Lynchburg, Virginia area, and then eventually maybe get with the food trucks locally and have some meetings with them, see if we can bring food trucks to like a park and then have a meetup somewhere outside. We'll see. I don't know. I'm new to this.
I have several friends who have reactions to commodity beef, and then I have other friends who are having reactions to the grass finished beef.
Mm.
And we haven't been able, even through years of trial and error, to identify what's in what that they're reacting to. So the search continues. It's really frustrating, but we're not planning on ending our current bar. We'll hold the line there. So we'll make the grass-fed, grass-finished 100%, but we're also trying to break in to allow it to be more affordable for people who just don't need that. I just don't know how we would even guess. We would just have to guess and check
Well,
whether or not.
it's a trial and error. So
Yeah.
mostly, I think the histamine in most people is some kind of cell danger response. Their body is maybe in a fight or flight stage from all kinds of crazy stuff they do in their life, and they don't pay attention to that part. And then they're not educated because, we don't hear about things like oxalates. You can't go to the doctor and talk to them about oxalates. They'll think you're crazy. That's like a
Yeah.
made up term to them, but like it's real. So I think just learning, like I went to the doctor today to talk to them about H1 and H2 mast cell stabilizers. Just because I'm at the point where I'm like, I'm eating the cleanest food I can. Cause if I eat anything else besides these frozen burgers, it's worse. So I'm like, I got to figure out some kind of way to calm the body to just let it see, oh, I can eat these foods and it's really not bad.
Yeah, there are pivots. There are pivots. For example, a general practitioner might not know an oxalate, but a nephrologist will. That's
Hmm.
the kidney doctor. So when you get kidney stones, they hook people up with low oxalate diets. And this is a standard thing. It's a standard thing. It's like you go in, you see the specialist, they offer this thing. And so if you can kind of like shepherd your doctor to this body of research of like, hey, so for my kidneys, I think I'm allergic to this thing which causes kidney stones. It's like there are ways into the conversation respectfully. You want to be respectful,
Hmm.
but you also want to be an advocate. I wonder if it's not a cytokine. So, thanks to COVID, we hear all about the cytokine storms, all this different reaction. Basically, it's a big hype way of talking about signals and messages. So, for example, if you're very, very fat, your fat cells become like an endocrine organ. If you're full of seed oils, your fat cells are overly full. And so in order to like stop them from getting so big that they rupture and burst, they start producing inflammatory cytokines. So your fat cells become an inflammatory like engine of more inflammation, which is lovely. So you really don't like seed oils on a metabolic level, especially adipocytes. You're definitely, when they're overfull, they don't get the signal. They can't signal correctly. And so they're full to bursting and they just cause inflammation all around. And so those cytokines, part of what's happening in a grain finished animal is that they are getting non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. And that's what's creating the juicy marbling. Like the fat is going into the muscle, which makes it tender and delicious. Now, the fat is not necessarily bad for you. It's mostly palmitic acid. It's a pretty saturated fat. It's delicious. The problem might be is that if your body has some sort of signaling problem with inflammation, that you might be getting some of the distressed cow cytokines from the meat. So that's going to be very hard to test for. That's just kind of like a pure speculation. I am neither a doctor nor a real scientist, but like I do study this stuff. The molecular biology is really fascinating to me because as a health advocate of my own health, I'm just like, well, what could it be? And then you research and you read papers and you read books and it's like, okay, well, there are these messenger chemicals that cause inflammation and they are pro-inflammatory or anti-inflammatory. Omega-6, omega-3, are two fats that are known for pro-inflammatory cascades and anti-inflammatory cascades. And so I wonder if there's some kind of effect going there because you're not the first person to tell me that they can't eat commodity beef.
Yeah, it's interesting. I have had grass fed, 100% grass fed, still had an issue because I'm not sure what has to be reported and what they do to these cows, even when they say they're grass fed.
Well, that could be the aging problem though,
Oh, yeah,
because
that's
it could be the histamine. So that's something that's really interesting. Like if you have different symptoms, and this is something that for your clients and for your audience too, it's like, I had a bad experience at eating a restaurant and I had a headache. And it's like, okay. And then I was really thirsty. Typically, that's what happens when I have accidental exposure to seed oils. But like,
Mm.
if you have a certain symptom that's like, my legs swell up, it's like, okay, do your legs swell up the same way when you have this kind of grass fed, grass finished beef, or when you have this kind of commodity beef? Or is it different? It's like, can you isolate, just do a good food diary, try to narrow that down as much as you can. If you need to, you can go lion diet.
I did do that,
Yeah,
and nothing really happened. I
of
still
course
swole
you
up.
did.
I did so here, but I did it the hard-headed way. So I actually did it from January 1 to January 30th, and then I tried Kelly Hogan's carnivore ice cream. So then I got really sick. Legs broke out like I'd eaten turkey or something.
Shoot.
Yes, and then so for, I think, 2.5 weeks, I was dealing with the consequences, but I was back on so I was back on, the Lion Diet the 1st of February to the 15th, I think, of March. And then I just called it because I was just eating burger patties and tallow and salt, and I didn't see any difference. And so I just went back on the little here's what I eat: pastured egg yolks, Danger decaf coffee,
Good thing.
and then I do Vital Farms unsalted butter, and I was doing tallow, regenerative, this delicious Wagyu tallow, but it's $18 a jar. And I have all these jars sitting around. And my husband's like, "What are we going to do with these jars?" I was like, "I don't know. I'm going to need them for later. So don't get rid of them. Don't do anything with them." And then finally today I was like, "Yeah, stop buying that." And he was like, "We got too many jars." But anyway, so it's decaf coffee, is Vital Farms butter, and egg yolks and Simple Truth burger patties and some really good salt that I found when we were down there and at Hack Your Health. So,
Cool.
yeah.
Well, I mean, you're probably much more of the health coach than I am. I like researching and product development, but it's fun to just consider. It's like, it just gets your mind turning. I mean, because for us, the consequences couldn't be higher. And like for me, I just lack the discipline when I'm out and about. Like when I'm traveling, it's hard for me to not like want to eat out or go to the gas station and play Russian roulette with
Oh,
like
God.
the eggs or the cheese and look for like contaminants or preservatives and like live dangerously,
Mhm.
trusting labels. And that's just not good for me. It's really not. So bringing my own pemmican has been a lifesaver for me and my own accountability, just so that I don't have to rely on, questionable crap when I'm out and about. But it's really fascinating.
Yeah. So now when people go out and they think they're going to get some meat snacks, in the grocery store or in the gas station, that doesn't mean they're clean. And most people don't even read the package. So I want to know, what's the difference between investing in carnivore bars or just like you said, playing Russian roulette and going and grabbing some beef jerky or some other meat product and trusting that that's good?
Well, I've always been someone who struggles with ravenous hunger. Like when I get hungry, I think I'm probably just waiting too long. I'm like ignoring it. And as a soldier and as a healthcare worker, I was probably just abusing caffeine too much. So it's like I get into this very stressed, hungry place. And then I make poor decisions and the poor decisions I regret later. And so it's like, how do I kind of like break this combo, this cascade of bad decisions of being where I don't want to be in a compromised state, making decisions I don't want to make? For me, the fat has been a game changer. Like when I eat fat, my mind calms down. I don't know if it's literally inflammation. I don't know if it's just I'm better at metabolizing fat than I am carbohydrates. I don't know if it's the long lasting. I don't know if it's an insulin component, but something about eating high fat, saturated fat just calms my mind in a way like all the tension melts away. I'm like, okay, is this really what I want to be doing? And then I do the thing that I want to do. And it's like, okay, great. So for me, whatever that switch is, it is probably leptin, it's probably serotonin, it's probably a whole mix of different things. I only find it in saturated animal fat. Butter is close, but it's not quite. When I have tallow, or when I specifically have, even better, is like raw fat that's still on the steak, that's not all the way cooked through. That kind of fat is beautiful. Raw fat is even better as far as like what it does to my brain. But you have to be careful on how you prepare that. You have to be careful of freshness. There's a whole like song and dance to that. Rendered fat is a little safer, but tallow is something that if you can get like the suet or the leaf lard from an animal, like the back fat next to the kidneys, you can make. So if you have some extra jars and you're
Have
needing
about
tallow,
yeah.
you can render your own. Just go low and slow. Make sure not to scorch it because all of the fat soluble vitamins and nutrition are in that. A lot of butchers, if you can find good butchers, will even give it away. They'll give it away or they'll subsidize it. They'll charge really low rate because nobody wants the pure fat. So if you can find a local butcher who you trust, that might be a way for you to bolster and save money on groceries. So
Hmm.
just throwing it out there because for me, it's the magic ingredient. I'll make lots of different versions of the carnivore bar here and in the future, and we're coming up with the everyday bar. Some of the variants are going to shock people, but every bar is going to be fat based. Every bar, no matter how inclusive, no matter how animal based it gets, is going to be fat based. And that's for a reason, because I think that's the magic key to survival. That's the magic key to mental health. That's the magic key to performance and satiation. Because if you're satiated, I feel like you're going to be making better choices, even if you are one of those people who can do carbs. I struggle with that. For me, I struggle with carbs. Like I need to be far away from carbs and well fed with high fat. And that's for me, it works the best.
Okay, so what's your take on people saying you need 1 gram of protein for 1 pound of your desired body weight? So many doctors and experts in the space say you should go like really low on the protein and then really high on the fat. So I love your idea on that.
Well, I mean, there are a couple different schools of thought. I think fat is the one macronutrient I'd really focus on, but you need adequate protein. So your protein needs, if you are, for example, having a baby, the protein needs are higher. So your fat, so your energy, like you're doing something, you're growing, another human being. Different periods of your cycle. If you're a woman, you'll have different protein requirements. You have a risk of anemia. You have different risks of iron, different rates of absorption. So your body is pretty adept at taking in what it needs when it's provided the raw materials and discarding the rest. Typically, your body knows what to do with too much, but it's infinitely willing to make do with not enough or with the wrong materials. That's why I think plant-based fats, seed oils, and plant-based proteins, which are often not complete. And if they are complete, they are not in balance with what nature has designed. They're not in the right ratios that's optimal for absorption. So a lot of times when you're absorbing something, there's rate limiters, right? So you're not absorbing everything to its fullest extent, like it's just a bag where you put stuff. There are cofactors that are limiting how much of anything that you can absorb at any one time. And then your body often has to transform that into something that's usable. Beta carotene and retinol. Retinol is vitamin A. Beta carotene is a precursor. You can turn it into vitamin A, but some people have as little as 7%. So then you're eating like 8,000 calories of carrots to get your RDA of vitamin A. And it's like, okay, so you have too many calories. You have not enough of everything else, and you barely have enough RDA of retinol. It's like because you lost 93% in the conversion. So you got to be mindful about like what are you doing this for? You're eating so that your body can benefit. Sorry, maybe that was a tangent, but can you
No, it
remind me
was
what the question was
great.
again?
No, you answered it. So the last thing I want to ask you is I'm going to put two questions in one because we're running out of time.
Okay.
What's one thing you wish you would have known before you started carnivore? And what's one tip you would give someone, especially a midlife woman, about, you know, starting or restarting carnivore and trying to get it to stick?
The one thing that I wish I would have known, how important magnesium and potassium can be. I think that electrolytes, people get really excited about sodium, and sodium is important, but you have four key electrolytes: sodium, calcium, magnesium, potassium. And it's really the magnesium and potassium that are very important intercellular. And so that really helps. If you have adequate magnesium, you're not going to have a buildup of calcium. And the calcium creates a lot of stiffness. It's pretty unhelpful. So when you're dealing with these plant compounds, you're detoxing, you're going carnivore, there are a lot of side effects or Herxheimer events. People talk about their toilet adventures the first 2 weeks, but like Kelly Hogan's 2 years of stalling, hormonal troubleshooting, adventures, and trying the latest and greatest thing on the carnivore sphere and getting derailed. We've all done these things. Just be careful. Just be careful of these things, and try to understand that you're going for long-term effects, not short-term weight loss. Like the Biggest Loser, you're not trying to just lose weight. You're trying to set up a whole new lifestyle, whole new way of life. And the second question
Is what tip would you give them? I think you gave that.
yeah, I mean, I kind of did that.
You rolled
So
it into one. So yeah,
yep,
the
great,
electrolytes. So let me just tell you what I have an app coming out. It's called Carnivore Lifestyle,
nice,
and my podcast is Carnivore Lifestyle for Women. So it's all inclusive
perfect.
to all the things you need to do in order to have the carnivore lifestyle. So where can people find you and learn more about you and your business?
So we're most active on Instagram, but we're doing Facebook. We have a campfire group. We're on TikTok, we're on Twitter or X. And so wherever you like to engage in social media, come find us. We're just the Carnivore Bar, and all it is pemmican. It's just pemmican, trying to make it modern and convenient. And we'd love to hear what you have to say, and how your health journey is going, because we're nothing without our fans, without the community. Like, we were built as a Kickstarter, from carnivores for carnivores. So don't be a stranger.
Thank you so much for coming today and sharing all of your wisdom about carnivore and health and, of course, pemmican. So I hope you have a great day. I look forward to seeing you at Meatstock.
Thanks.
Thank you.